Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Let the Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg, Suffolk County Republican Committee Chairman Jesse Garcia, and essayist and commentator Eric Lavine on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. Jesse is the Vice Chair of the New York State Party and the County Chair of the Suffolk County Party. With us is Eric Lavine, noted attorney, commentator, and essayist, and I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. We are honored and privileged to have United States Senator Todd Young from the great state of Indiana. Senator Young is a senior senator from that state. He's a graduate of Annapolis, served both in the Navy and in the Marines. He's an MBA and a lawyer, serves on three very important committees, finance and commerce, and third one. What's the third one, Senator? Intelligence. There you go. I dropped my intelligence for a moment. Thank you for picking it up.
Well, yours is artificial.
Mine's artificial intelligence. Okay. But I'm the wave of the future.
All right.
So, Senator, I'm going to turn you over first to Eric Lavine, and then to Chairman Garcia, and then I'll pick up.
Well,
fantastic.
Well, Todd, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you. I think we have to start with what is probably the single most important issue facing Indiana today, and that is the National Football Championship game coming up on the 19th, Indiana versus Miami. So I'm going out on a limb. Who are you rooting for here?
Of course, the Hurricane Hoosiers, and I think it's going to be a great game. I'm hoping for a lot of excitement, but in the end, I think you got to place your money on the Hoosiers. They've looked really solid every game, and the great thing about Coach Signetti is he never ever lets up. Their heads will be ready for this game,
and he never smiles. I've noticed that as well. So.
Yeah, he shares that with you, my friend, but nonetheless.
Fair enough. So some people view Washington, D.C. as a place where things go to die and nothing gets done. But you've been quite active, and in particular, you've been focusing on the SHIPS Act, which is focusing on revitalizing the commercial maritime industry. Why is that so critical, and what is contained in the SHIPS Act, and what can the American people expect from it?
Thanks for the question, Counselor. The SHIPS Act is an effort to rebuild our merchant marine. We have literally lost the ability to build ships in this country. Last year, we built one ocean-going vessel the entire year. China they can build over 1,000 in a given year. Of course, they have overcapacity. We don't. That's the good news. We don't need to match them ship for ship. But when they have nearly 6,000 ocean-going vessels in international commerce, and we only have 80, that constitutes a national security risk. And here's why: we need the trained craftsmen. The people trained to build these ships. We need the shipyards equipped to build modern vessels so that in a time of war, these civilian shipyards can be repurposed to repair vessels or, if necessary, to build new vessels. We can't do that right now, and it's become an acute problem. So our legislation aims to take funds already earmarked for certain purposes and create a trust fund, much like the Highway Trust Fund, but this would be a maritime trust fund, capturing our port fees, our lock and dam fees, and other streams of revenues so that over a period of time we can use that fund along with some deregulatory measures to attract more private sector investment paired with those funds to revitalize our shipyards and build. We aim for 250 vessels over the next 10 years, Eric, and we think that'll be enough to move our men and materiel into harm's way as our merchant marine does. during times of conflict, and also to provide us a measure of economic security so that we can't be coerced by other nations when we happen to disagree with them from a public policy standpoint. We don't want to be over the barrel, to put a fine point on it, with the Chinese Communist Party. Every time we need, if we have a global pandemic and we need medicines or something to come in the country, we can't depend on them to be kind and continue to ship things to us. So we're going to remedy this problem. Blessedly, the President of the United States, President Trump, has prioritized restoring American maritime dominance, and we are working hand in glove in a bipartisan way with the White House on this Ships for America Act. I hope it passes this first quarter.
So it's not just the merchant marine vessels that we don't have enough of. I would argue that we don't have enough for the Navy as well. We don't have enough aircraft carriers. We don't have enough just generally military naval vessels. Is there any provision in this bill? Is there something separate and apart that we'd have to look to in order to really fully fund and prepare our military?
No, it's a great point, and I think for close observers of this, like yourself and Jesse and Judge, they know our Navy's not big enough. There's an old saying when it comes to our naval capacity, which is that quantity has its very own quality, meaning we may have the very best naval vessels in the world, most capable, which we do, but at some point the oceans are very large and you need a bunch of ships to cover the oceans if we're going to be a global power. And that is broadly understood in Congress. That's a related issue set or problem set, but a distinct one. So there's other legislation focusing on that. But what seems to be not understood by many of my colleagues and by the American people is our acute weakness on the merchant side, which impacts our ability, as I've indicated, to repair and rebuild naval vessels, which is very important.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's critically important. But speaking about our Navy, our military, a huge amount of our assets are currently deployed off the coast of Venezuela. And needless to say, everybody's aware that the United States, I think, it's great. Maduro's gone. I think it's a net plus for the United States, the region, and the world. But recently there was a vote in the Senate regarding the War Powers Act. The first vote, you voted in favor of it, and the second vote, you voted against it. I was just wondering if you could speak to why you voted the way you did each time, and if possible, to address your view of whether or not it's constitutional itself, because I know that's been a big debate as well. Yeah,
all great questions. So this issue of war powers has ever since I entered the U.S. Senate, been very important to me. I entered the U.S. Navy just weeks prior to the first Gulf War starting. I served in the office of U.S. Senator Dick Lugar, former chair of the Foreign Relations Committee and Intelligence Committee, for a period of time, during the period of time in which the Iraq War kicked off in 2002. So there's a history here. And I think I have been prioritizing this issue, yes, because I wore the uniform, but also by observation when you have very robust debate and are humbled by some of our recent misadventures in history or costly foreign conflicts. I think the American people deserve to hold members of Congress responsible for the decision to commit, significant resources and our troops. So with that predicate laid, I didn't feel like enough of those questions were being answered. Are asked and answered here in Congress. I think that over the years, frankly, we've gotten a little too casual as it relates to military force and asking hard questions, especially when when our own president happens to be in the Oval Office. That's why over the last few presidents that I have served with, I've prioritized this issue. I supported, as did you, as we just indicated, we all celebrated this amazing Spec Ops operation. I'm so glad that this dictator Maduro was brought to justice. But prospectively, The administration has strongly indicated they have no intention of sending in ground forces into Venezuela. I believe that. But I also had a lot more questions about the stabilization and transition period. And sometimes you don't intend to send forces in, but you feel like you have to. And I just wanted to make sure that it was understood by everyone that if that predicament occurred where the president felt like he needed to commit forces to protect core national security interests of the American people, we'd debate it and vote on it. And a whole lot of people in my party disagreed with that, which I thought peculiar because we just went through a major national campaign about trying to avoid forever wars. And I voted accordingly. And then we had an opportunity days later, recognizing candidly that this war powers resolution wasn't going to pass the House of Representatives. And if it did, the president would have vetoed it, and there's no way we would have overridden it. So I had to make one of these prudential decisions that we make and vote for something that will never become law, or perhaps secure real deliverables from the administration that would give me more security about the future. I did the latter. I was able to get Secretary of State Rubio to appear before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. I got a formal written commitment from the Secretary of State that is available on my website, but it indicates that if there's any desire for the president to commit forces into the country for a major military operation, they will ask for military authorization for the use of military force from Congress, not something an administration typically commits to. And I feel like I advanced the war powers aims without the war powers resolution actually being signed into law.
Thank you, Senator. Chairman Garcia, questions for Senator Todd Young.
Senator, it's a pleasure to have you, and it truly is an honor. I think the judge touched on, and our anchor touched on your background, you being a Naval Academy graduate.
By the way, I want the record to be clear. Not only am I an anchor, but I was in the Merchant Marine. But I was a wiper.
And your ship sank.
No, it did not. I was a wiper, which, as you know, is the lowest common denominator on a ship. Okay.
And as I've learned and been told, reminded over, you never retire as a Marine, and understand that you served as a captain and you served on the intelligence in the southern border. And thank you so much for that. I have two questions. One is to piggyback on what Eric just asked you about Venezuela and the War Powers Act and the use of military there. And then one to talk about one of your pieces of legislation that was had a lot of foresight in 2022, which is the CHIPS and Science Act. But first, to pick up on what Eric said, it's been some discussions about the use of contract or private military contractors in Venezuela to secure, to assist those private investment in U.S. companies as they begin the investment to rebuild and reconstruct the infrastructure there. Has that been, is it more than rumor? Is it something that is being discussed at your level and your committees and such, or is something that has been discussed with you and your colleagues with the White House?
So that's a fantastic question, and I'm not surprised. I get it from this group. Listen, it's something I've been wondering. Blackwater is, for example, a very prominent contractor that sometimes, in situations like this, to the extent there's ever been something like this, they're sent in for these types of purposes. And I heard their name circulated in the news the other day. It got me wondering as well. I don't have answers to this. I don't know that any of my colleagues yet have answers to this. It seems like if the American people are going to, rest as it relates to Venezuela, as we go from stabilization to transition, all the rest. This is the type of question members of Congress should be asking and getting answers to, which is why I think it's important that we made a point about facilitating these sorts of probing questions through having a public hearing. It's why I'm grateful, candidly, to Secretary Rubio for agreeing to appear before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. When you have these public hearings, it leads to all kinds of follow-up questions, typically submitted in writing. You get answers to those, and it leads to further conversation. So that's just consistent with our oversight. So in short, I don't have an answer for that right now, but it is, it's one of many questions that hopefully we'll be seeking answers to. The other question pertained to, you have to remind me, I'm sorry.
Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Well, the holidays have come and gone once again, but if you've forgotten to get that special someone in your life a gift, well, Mint Mobile is extending their holiday offer of half off unlimited wireless. So here's the idea. You get it now. You call it an early present for next year. What do you have to lose? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Limited time 50% off regular price for new customers. Upfront payment required. $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan. Taxes and fees extra. Speeds may slow after 50 gigabytes per month when network is busy. See terms.
The Chips and Science Act that you had passed in 2022 to outcompete China, especially when it comes down to the construction of semiconductors and bringing that production back to the United States, especially in the heartland, so that we're not dependent, as you mentioned, with merchant marine ships and the construction and the reconstruction of those, the construction and the advancement of those, that we finally bring the supply chain home and not be dependent upon, the Chinese Communist Party. Because I think I agree with you in the premise of this, Bill, that, this is it's national and economic security. And we've spoken here in the past. It's something different, but maybe connected, that, you see a lot of Chinese Communist Party connected companies and corporations purchasing properties in and around the heartland of America, the breadbasket of our great country, near military bases. But this is, of course, to bring home a supply chain, to build here in the United States semiconductors and other technologies.
That's exactly right. And I'm very reluctant to involve the government in these sorts of activities. But this would be a market failure, right? We went through a global pandemic. That too is a sort of catastrophic event that could trigger the need to have our own supply of critical items so that we can sustain ourselves until the end of that pandemic. That revealed that we had all kinds of semiconductor shortages in this country. So we were literally unable to run a modern economy. And that was just the pandemic. Imagine if your primary adversary disrupts critical supply chains, very extended and distributed supply chains for malign and nefarious reasons. And so we had to harden ourselves against that contingency. And there are some other, narrow areas, but important national security adjacent areas that we're going to have to shore up as well. And now that we've passed the Chips and Science Act and it's being implemented, I think there's a recognition. It took a lot of argument, candidly, a lot of persuasion with people who I tend to see the world similarly with, who thought we should just let markets work in this case. But there are instances where government needs to selectively harden ourselves against disruptions. And so I'm really proud of winning the argument and winning the vote on the back end of it. And we've had a lot of success unlocking about $500 billion in private sector commitments and counting. So I'll take one more question, and then we're going to have to wrap soon. You guys have been great. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay, it's my turn, Senator. So,
all right, Judge.
So the anchor's going to weigh you down.
I'm standing at attention, Judge. All right.
So, Senator, I'm very concerned about what's going on in Iran. I'm particularly concerned about the fact that President Trump has made very strong commitments to protecting the people of Iran, and yet we haven't seen anything, at least on the surface, of that protection. Thousands of people are being killed. Tens of thousands of people are being disappeared. I think it would be a dangerous and a lost opportunity if we don't have regime change there. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, listen, I want regime change too. We got the leading state sponsor of terrorism, a dictator, and Khamenei, and those around him are horrible henchmen of the regime as well. And listen, I want the people to breathe free. The people of Iran to breathe free. It has historically been a well-educated society, and I think that so many of those people, long for freedom and the enjoyment of Western values. But in the meantime, their terrorist government is, will try and reconstitute its ability to attack through proxies, and as long as they retain some nuclear expertise, which they do, they'll continue to be a threat on that front to us as well as to our closest allies like Israel. So my thought is, yes, we should be doing things. There are a lot of options. There is the diplomatic route. There's cyber. There are sanctions. There's language encouragement, the Farsi language encouragement, to the extent we still have those capabilities in our government. There's spec ops. And then there are foreign military capabilities. Restate everything I just said through other governments and our friends and allies. So it's still fairly early in this whole thing, but timing is critical. And I know the administration is intently focused on this. Of course, we just had a meeting at the White House about this very topic yesterday, in which it was reported that the president is considering his menu of options. And, I did my little part yesterday to issue a public statement just through social media telling the people of Iran we stand in solidarity with them. We encourage them to continue to speak up. And I'm waiting to see what the president thinks we need to do. So I want to be supportive of his efforts as we deal with the situation. Glad to see we're still, you can at once not want forever wars, but stay deeply and smartly engaged in the world, and that's the balance I hope we strike.
Well, Senator Todd Young, senior senator from the great state of Indiana, it's been an honor and a privilege to have you on Let the Record Show. On behalf of Eric Lavine, Chairman Garcia, and myself, I want to thank you for being with us this week. We look forward to having you again on the show as important developments occur throughout the world and throughout the United States. Thank you for being with us today.
Well, thank you, Counselor, Chairman, and Judge, and I've really enjoyed this. You guys are very smart questioners, and I wish you continued success.
Thank you, Senator.
And good luck to the Hoosiers this weekend.
Go Hoosiers.
All right.
Out here.
Thank you, Senator. This is Let the Record Show. We've just been honored to have Senator Todd Young of Indiana, a great patriot, a great United States senator, a graduate of Annapolis, a former Navy officer and a Marine, and one smart guy, as John Caspatese would say. We're going to take a break now. We'll be back in but a few moments for our second segment with more important and interesting conversation. Please stay with us.
Let the Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg, Suffolk County Republican Committee Chairman Jesse Garcia, and essayist and commentator Eric Lavine on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. Jesse is the Vice Chair of the New York State Party and the County Chair of the Suffolk County Republican Party. With us is our co-host, noted attorney, commentator, and essayist, Eric Lavine, and I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. We just had Senator Todd Young for our first segment, a great patriot and a great United States senator. I want to pick up on something I raised a question with Senator Young about, which is a matter of real concern to me. Then I'll turn it over to Eric and to Jesse. I think Iran's regime has to go. I think the world will be a safer place and a better place if the theocratic despots are thrown out of there. and that power goes back to the people. They kill their own people. There's this, the sounds of silence are enormous. You see all the people are protesting the so-called Gaza situation, and nobody's saying anything, including the progressive left or the Islamists, about the killing of their own fellow Muslims, or about that regime is terrorizing the people through torture, brutality, inhumanity, and murders. It's just an awful situation. This is a chance of a lifetime to turn the clock back 47 years, where we were humiliated with Jimmy Carter as president, and we've paid the price for 47 years where the primary state sponsor of terrorism has gone rampant. It's tried to get atomic weapons, has militarized the Middle East, has set up terrorist networks all across the world. Recent reports indicate that we're even making noises about threatening the life of President Trump again. That was reported in the New York Post on Thursday. This is a serious matter. They have death appeals out there to their crazy allies and supporters to go after a former Secretary of State, former National Security Advisor, members of Congress who oppose them. These are dangerous people. They have to be taken out, and I want Trump to do something. Now, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt that he's moving behind the scenes to do what has to be done, but he cannot allow this to go on because the slaughter continues on a daily basis, and you cannot take the word of this regime that they have stopped the executions and the murders, because part of the whole culture over there is they can lie to your face because we're the devil, and the only truth that matters is their victory. Eric.
Yeah, regime change is all there is. That has to be American policy. There are estimates that there are over 1 million people in the streets of Iran. They're in every city and every province, and they're actually holding up flags of the Shah and renaming streets after President Trump. Let's remember what the nature of this regime is. In 1979, this regime was born at war with the United States. They've been fighting a war against the United States since 1979, and we have not been fighting back. They stormed the U.S. Embassy in Tehran on November 4th, 1979, took 60 American hostages for 444 days. They murdered 241 U.S. service members, 220 Marines, 18 U.S. Navy sailors, and 3 U.S. Army soldiers by bombing the Marine barracks in Beirut. They blew up the Khobar Tower housing complex in Tehran, Saudi Arabia, on June 25, 1996, killing 19 U.S. airmen and injuring more than 400 U.S. and international military members and civilians. They are responsible for 1/3 of the American dead and wounded in Iraq and Afghanistan. They've attempted to assassinate the Saudi ambassador to the United States in Washington in October of 2011. They've attempted to destabilize and overthrow the Saudi royal family. They've directly participated in over 100 terrorist attacks against American service members in Syria and Iraq, one of whom was my son in 2018-2019, who led a mortar platoon fighting ISIS. They remain the leading state sponsor of global terrorism. They're responsible for terror attacks around the globe. They funded and armed and directed Houthis as it attacked American merchant shipping in the Red Sea. They've joined the axis of evil with China, Russia, North Korea, which is dedicated to upending the American-led world order. And that's just a partial list. So, and if the regime falls, it changes not just the entire region, but it changes the world.
It changes the future of civilization.
Exactly. Israel wins. Lebanon wins because Hezbollah falls. Yemen wins because the Houthi falls. China and Russia lose. The axis of evil is weakened. Those two malign actors are completely pushed out of the Middle East, and they become more dependent on American-controlled oil. And if you want to back a winner, it tells the world if you want to back a winner, you have to back the United States. And the retreat that you've seen since Obama or during the Obama administration has been reversed. Iraq and Syria win because Iran has been a destabilizing force in those countries, and American forces in the region are safer. So this is the next step after Venezuela. Let's remember there is a complete nexus between what happened in Venezuela with Maduro and what is going on in Iran. Iran and Hezbollah are in Venezuela, or were in Venezuela. They were part of the drug cartels. The Iranian military was there. Maduro was supplying oil to Iran. So Iran has been is in the Western Hemisphere, along with the IRGC, which is the arm of the Iranian government that trains and arms terrorism around the world. Now, in 2009, when the people took to the streets and chanted, "Obama, Obama, are you with us or are you with the Nazis?" Obama was silent. In 2015, when the regime was on the cusp of falling because it was an economic basket case, Obama gave them the JCPOA, gave them over $115 billion in money, in funds, to fund their military and their terrorist activities, build a nuclear program, and a ballistic missile system to deliver it. President Trump implemented the maximum pressure program and again put Iran back on its heels and made it an economic basket case. President Biden became president, and he failed to enforce sanction and gave gifts of billions of dollars to the regime with which they built their missiles and the ballistic missiles and nuclear program and funded terrorism. This regime has literally clubbed women to death. Everyone knows Masha Amini, or if you don't, you should know her. This is a woman who took her headscarf off in 2022 and was bludgeoned to death because she did it. Now, one of the main reasons why this is different from other uprisings is because the 12-day war in June, when Israel attacked and the United States joined Israel in attacking Iran's nuclear facilities, it has shown Iran for the paper tiger that it is. The people of Iran are emboldened, and they're standing up and they're calling out for help. And President Trump, unlike Biden, unlike Obama, has said, quote, help is on the way.
So where is it?
Well, look, let's keep in mind, everybody was saying just before the United States attacked the nuclear program in Iran, everyone was saying, oh, Trump is restraining Bibi. Oh, Bibi's on the outs with Trump. And then days later, we, along with the Israelis, attacked their nuclear program. So let's not jump the gun here. But it's really important. It's critically important that he follow through to support the people of Iran. But what's also interesting is, who are the voices against attacking Iran? It's the Tucker Carlson wing of the Republican Party and the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. So Tucker Carlson and his have the same foreign policy as Zoran Mamdani and AOC. So as a general matter, if Tucker Carlson and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Zoran Mamdani and AOC agree on a particular policy, you know that policy is wrong. They want the Ayatollah to win. We need the Ayatollah to lose. So what are the reasons they give that we shouldn't attack? The big one that's being paraded out there right now is this coup in 1953 that overthrew the democratically elected Mossadegh. Iran used to be a British colony, and then after World War II and the British colonies broke off, Iran was one of them. And in 1953, he was a socialist, Mossadegh is, and there was a big concern. So when Senator Warner, who's been the biggest proponent of this one, I've heard at least 2 or 3 times he's made this point, says that the reason we have Khomeini is because of the coup in 1953. That's utter nonsense. What was happening in 1953 is that Mossadegh was a socialist and was moving towards the Soviet Union as part of the Cold War. And the mullahs in Iran, these aren't the believers of the political Islam that Khomeini brought, but the mullahs did not want to become part of a godless Soviet Union. They encouraged an overthrow of Mossadegh, and the United States and Britain jumped in and took a side and pushed Mossadegh out. So this notion that, we're being punished because we led this coup is utter nonsense. The Iranians themselves wanted the coup. And then, of course, in 1979, and the Shah's now in place after Mossadegh falls, in 1979, Jimmy Carter let the Shah fall. And it wasn't because there was a coup in 1953. Carter claimed that he wanted to make human rights a bigger part of American foreign policy. All well and good. But the problem with that theory was the people that took the Shah's place made the Shah look like a Boy Scout. Khomeini is a Nazi. Khomeini's regime is a Nazi regime. And it's anti-Western. The Shah was pro-Western. It had close relationships with Israel. It was Israel's primary supplier of oil during that time. Khomeini was in Paris. The French never should have let Khomeini out of Paris. And then once he came to Iran, there was a brief civil war between the democratic forces in Iran and the mullahs. And we didn't take a side. And then Khomeini caused the American embassy to be overrun. And 444 days later, the American hostages were finally released. But what it succeeded in doing was making Khomeini the champion of the Iranian people because he stood up to America. Iran, this regime, must fall. And the criticism that if it falls, it's going to be like Iraq is nonsense. Iraq is an artifice of colonialism. Iran has existed, and Persia has existed for thousands of years. There's a common history. There's a common culture. There's a common border. The country will not fall to pieces. And Richard, to your point, where are the protesters?
No, where are the protesters
now?
We're supporting the
Iranian people.
Right.
They don't care about the Iranian people. These protesters also don't care about the Palestinians. These protests are about killing Jews. If the Iranians were protesting Jews, they'd be out in the streets. They never cared. It's all about who is your enemy. It's not about what they support. It's about who are you against. And the Palestinians, and since Hamas is against Israel, they're for Hamas. If you would think if they really cared about people's freedoms, they would be out in the streets supporting the Iranians. But it's not about Iran. It's not about the Palestinians. It's about killing Jews. That's why there are no protests.
All right, we have a few minutes left in this segment. So, Jesse, your thoughts on this Iranian situation?
Absolutely, that I think that we should have regime change. It should be our policy, and we do. And I think Eric enumerated the whole history of this and where we are. I think that I just want to point out a couple of other things. Unlike, and it's funny because I had circled and highlighted in my notes for today's topics, help is on its way. And that's what's critical here is that for the first time, the American president is once again taking a position. He is using his big stick on a diplomatic scale and foreign policy to set back these issues. It is emboldening our actions. The United States, in conjunction with Israel's actions on the attack of the nuclear sites, was successful and has emboldened these individuals who want freedom, who want to overthrow this regime. And, there are people, I'm 59 years old, and I grew up in the 70s and such. I was young in the 70s. But all you have to do is look at the newsreels from the 1970s. If you looked at the streets and the newsreels of depicting Tehran back in the 1970s, you would have seen it, and you wouldn't have known if that was Tehran or New York City or maybe somewhere on Long Island. Now, of course, it is locked down. It is the government, and it's the religious sects and the religious radicals that are taking over and have taken over the lives and really dictate everything that's going on there. I agree that while everyone wants action to be done quickly, you got to trust his president. He has done everything deliberately. He has done it methodically. He has done it well thought out, strategically. And if that means he's got to take a little bit of bad press from a sect of the media or the liberal elites that he's not going fast enough, so be it. Because when he does act, the results have been undisputedly successful, whether it be attacks on the Iran nuclear power facilities or the special operations in Venezuela that eliminated Maduro. And I don't think that we take care of Venezuela first and then Iran. I believe that this administration, because as was pointed out in this conversation, that they are linked, Venezuela and Iran, as well as other parts of American opponents and enemies like Russia and China, that the administration is looking at this simultaneously. And we got to give this administration the ability to breathe, maneuver, and get things in place so they can act swiftly, deliberately, and successfully.
I think that's very well said. I'll tell you my thoughts on this. I take great confidence in having Marco Rubio as our Secretary of State.
Amen to that.
And so when Marco Rubio is leading the charge and the negotiations, I feel really good about it. In contrast, the gentleman who's President Trump's friend, Steve Witkoff, who I understand is a lovely guy and is a very smart guy and a good real estate negotiator, I'm less sanguine when he's leading the charge and the negotiations because he doesn't have the world life experience that a Rubio has. Rubio has dedicated his life to the study of this. And Rubio understands, to your point, Jesse, and to Eric's point, how it all is coordinated. The fall of Venezuela and the fall of the Iranian despots, the theocratic despots, will lead to the fall of the despotism in Cuba, the weakening of China, the weakening of Russia, the weakening of North Korea. This is all good for Western civilization, for world peace, and for a better world. And I think it's very, very important that we understand how all these pieces fit together. And the three of us for years have been talking about this axis of evil. This is the time now to unravel the dynamic of this axis of evil. And that's why I don't want to see a failed opportunity. I don't want to see the Maduro people stay in charge of Venezuela. I don't want to see the Ayatollahs survive these protests. I want to see those people gone. I want to see the Monroe Doctrine resurrected so we don't have enemies in our midst in our hemisphere. I don't want to see the Middle East a playground for terrorism and Islamist fundamentalism who want to dominate the world. This is Let the Record Show. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. With me is Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party, Eric Lavine, noted commentator, attorney, and essayist. We'll be back in but a few moments for our final segment of this week's show. Please stay with us on Let the Record Show.
Let the Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg, Suffolk County Republican Committee Chairman Jesse Garcia, and essayist and commentator Eric Lavine on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party, noted commentator, attorney, and essayist Eric Lavine, and I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. So, gentlemen, we have a real problem in the United States, and that problem is that the United States is a country at war with itself. Where's the common sense center? And what's going on in places like Minneapolis and Chicago and Portland? And why do we have people who are fighting against federal law enforcement? Why is it such an organization as calling itself ICE Watch, which is dedicated to the proposition teaching people how to resist legal, justified law enforcement to rid this country of illegal migrants, many of whom are violent, are predators, are rapists, murderers, have totally disrupted this country. Biden, to his eternal discredit, let these people in by the millions. The numbers are staggering. It could be 10, 15, 20 million people. We don't know the count. These monsters are walking amongst us. All the Trump administration is trying to do is to protect our borders, which Trump, thankfully, has been doing, and to rid us of people who shouldn't be here in the first place, who are guilty of welfare fraud, violent acts, dangerous people, child predators, drug dealers. Why do you have this clown car of opposition to legitimate law enforcement? The Supremacy Clause of the United States Constitution is clear. Federal immigration law, federal law enforcement trumps these local objections. Now you have mayors and governors who are acting as if they're part of a resistance. The last time that happened was during the Civil War, and the federal power was maintained and beat back the insurrectionists. Before that, you had the attempt by Senator Calhoun to lead a rebellion against the federal powers led by President Andrew Jackson. It has to be stopped. There's a supremacy clause. Federal law governs. These people have no right to interpose and to try to threaten, block, intimidate, drive their cars into our federal law enforcement officers, harass them constantly, give heads up so there can be demonstrations when people are trying to do their jobs. We wouldn't have all these military-type incursions with well-armed federal enforcement if the local authorities would cooperate. Then you just pick these people up out of the jail cells, out of the prisons, out of the detention centers. All of these problems come because they will not allow, under the fraud they call sanctuary cities and states, allow cooperation by localities with federal law enforcement. Eric, your thoughts?
Well, this is obviously a political issue. You have morons like Governor Tim Walz, who's threatening to call it the National Guard to actually fight the ICE, federal law enforcement officials. That's called a civil war. I mean, you made the point.
I call that it's insurrection. It's insurrection.
So what governors and supporters of these protests are actually advocating is the concept of nullification. What is nullification? People, if you learned your history, your Civil War history, the South, the Confederacy, decided that it would not follow the anti-slave laws that had been passed by Congress. So they nullified them and ignored them. And then when the federal troops were deployed, they seceded and fought and led to the Civil War. Now, I'm not saying that Minnesota is going to secede from the Union. I do wish that Tim Walz would resign and secede from government. But these are very dangerous things that are happening. This idea that even the thought that you're going to bring out the National Guard and confront federal law enforcement officials is quite a frightening thought. I really want to know what the governor's thought process was.
Would Wilson support that when George Wallace was confronted by federal authorities when they were trying to have civil rights enforcement at the colleges and universities down south?
Right. Well, when the governor of Arkansas stood in the schoolhouse door to prevent African-American students from entering the schools, Eisenhower deployed the military.
As he should.
As he should have. And had the governor decided to call out the National Guard, you would have another civil war. So this is the level of insanity we're dealing with. You know, of course, when there were the BLM riots in 2022 during COVID, 21, 22, somehow those were virtuous. Those were wonderful. Those were great.
That was the summer of love, 2020.
Yeah. So and now we have actually in the city, Zohra Mamdani's appointed someone. What's her name? She's the former involved with the Women's March, the women's movement, and she thinks that she thinks that looting's a good thing and that white people taught blacks how to loot, and therefore looting's okay. But these are the kinds of people that you're finding on the left. But to your point, Richard, why are these letting these people in? And the other reason why it's a political issue, first, you want to motivate your voters. Why anyone would vote in favor of these kinds of insurrections is beyond me. But when you have illegal aliens or people who have come here illegally, undocumented aliens, whatever adjective you want to use, the way that our process works when they conduct the census is that everyone is counted, including people that are here illegally. And if you are included in the census, then you get more congressional seats. So it's not even so much that the Democrats want these people to be able to vote. They want them physically present so that they'll have more people here so that in the blue states they can get more congressional districts. That's part of what's motivating. And
having more congressional districts leads to more federal funding.
Yes. So there's an actual logic to it, as offensive as it is. But there's a logic behind this.
Jesse, your thoughts?
Absolutely, this is nothing more than a political action and political stunt. Let's not forget that in the weeks leading up to this situation, this incident in Minneapolis, that Minnesota was in the headlines internationally, even domestically, everywhere, on every headlines for a multi-billion-dollar corruption and scandal.
The numbers breaking $9 or $10 billion, Jesse. $9 or $10 billion, and growing.
The misuse of federal dollars for COVID. These were going to Somalians and to people of interests with the Democratic operation in Minnesota, and that should have been going to people for food pantries and those with autism. So there is a little bit of a politics here about trying to change a situation and try and change the narrative here. But I mean, just like the three of us here and all Americans, we respect and encourage our constitutional rights to peacefully protest. That right, though, however, ends the moment violence begins. And what has been going on here in these left groups, these socialist groups, the Democrat-associated organizations, the Fight ICE groups, are teaching people to try to be obstructionists. I may not be a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer, and I may be getting this right, and the two of you who are better schooled than I am will clarify or correct me. But the Insurrection Act allows the president to move forward when federal laws are being impeded or federal officers are being impeded. And that's what's going on here in Minneapolis, to the point where the rhetoric is getting to the point where it's just inflaming the situation. And even the Minneapolis chief of police has been saying, hey, guys, to his own bosses, whether it be the mayor of Minneapolis or whether it's the governor of Minnesota, cool your jets, control your rhetoric. But this is not helping anything. For me, and I think for many Americans, they're seeing this for what it is. It is a political stunt that is putting a great danger and splitting this community and possibly factions of this country splitting it, continue to divide that at a time when we need to come together and heal. These officers are doing their jobs. They're going after criminals that are here illegally. These are anywhere from a misdemeanor to a felony, sex offenders to drug dealers, or to criminals with DWIs or DUIs and selling drugs. Because here it is, what Democrats are telling people, if they say it's open season on a cop, they're saying and giving the tacit approval that it's open season on our kids.
Well, of course, that's exactly right. It's an open season on public safety, quality of life, law and order, a civilized community. That's what it is. And
well, it's an effort to show that, quote-unquote, Republicans can't govern. So if you create chaos, you say, look, Trump's creating the chaos, even though it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Well, it's a deliberate, calculated effort to undermine federal law enforcement and to, if Trump, the cliches become, but it's absolutely correct. If Trump cured cancer, some of these left-wing Democrats would be against it because it was Trump who did it. I mean, it's absolutely insane. It really is a mental disease and defect. So, Jesse, I want to switch gears because we have about 5 minutes left in this final segment. The State of the State speech was given the other day by Governor Hochul. Now, my take on it wasn't much of a State of the State speech as was a campaign address and throwing red meat to her supporters and an attempt to buy off the left and make nice to Mayor Mondami, who leads the progressive Islamist faction of the Democratic Party, which seems to be controlling the Democratic Party these days. She's making noises about giving a private right of action for citizens or non-citizens to sue for alleged violations by federal law enforcement for the violation of the so-called rights. She makes noises. I'm not going to raise taxes, but her record is she won't support raising taxes until after the election's over and she gets herself reelected. She'll do the same thing she did on congestion pricing, which is she played the gambit. She got herself support from the Democrats, helped elect Congress people who were Democrats, and that's why she did that. And then right after the election, she went and she pushed through the congestion pricing. So I want to get your thoughts, Jesse, because you're the political expert on this panel, about your thoughts on this State of the State speech by Kathy Hochul.
Probably one of the most partisan State of the States addresses that we've probably heard in generations, and that's saying a lot, coming from the fact that we had Governor Cuomo here for so long. But I mean, we spoke about this earlier in the week. All of us have seen the classic Peanuts cartoon where Lucy Van Pelt is encouraging Charlie Brown to kick the football, and just as Charlie Brown is running down to kick the football, she pulls it away. Now, this has been a running gag for about 60 years in this cartoon strip. Charlie Brown's never kicked the football. That's exactly what Governor Hochul has done here. She gives a lot of good sound bites that never come to reality. She keeps using the New Yorkers as playing the role of Charlie Brown, pulling the football out from underneath them, as you pointed out. Taxes will rise after Election Day. All of the bad laws that she said she stays silent on, or she said she's against,
what about all the pro-criminal laws were passed by the state legislature and signed by Democratic governors? She didn't say anything about changing any of them.
She has been a part of. Exactly. So that's why what you won't hear from this governor, though, what you didn't hear from this governor in her State of the State, you won't hear a commitment to fully repeal the disastrous cashless bail law that empowers criminals and handcuffs cops, prosecutors, and judges. You won't hear meaningful proposals to protect our kids and combat the deadly drug crisis by enacting, strong death by dealer laws championed by like a district attorney such as Ray Tierney. What we will hear is the same old soft on crime ideology pushed by far left socialists like Mayor Zohan Mondami, who seeks to weaken law enforcement and put our police officers in harm's way. This may have been a campaign attempt on her part. It spoke to her base, but in the end, what we need is truly Americans are seeing that enough is enough. They're tired of Kathy Hochul pulling the football away from us when it comes to public safety, affordability, and the quality of life. And this year, we get to take our state back. And that's why I'm proud to be backing Bruce Blakeman for governor. You know, he has a record that's of a true executive leader, one who has cut taxes, supported law enforcement, added more cops to our streets, and made our communities safer. It's time that we're going to end the one-party rule in Albany, and that's by electing Bruce Blakeman for governor. And she has provided us, the governor has, the roadmap to do that by outlining her own campaign-style speech to her base.
Well, people should remember that she is owned by Zoran Mamdani.
I think that's exactly the point.
You know, she desperately she can't win it. She can't win the primary without his support because she's going to be primaried from the radical left by
Delgado.
Right. And then and then assuming she wins the primary and she's the general election candidate, she needs to get more than 65% of the New York City vote, and she can't get that without Mayor Mamdani's support. So she's going to do whatever he tells her to do.
Well, on that unhappy note, we have to sign off for today's show. This has been Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia, noted attorney, commentator, and essayist Eric Lavine. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. I want to thank you, gentlemen, for another great show. I want to thank Senator Todd Young, Senior Senator of Indiana, for being on the show with us in our first segment. We look forward to having you again with us next week. I want to make a self-serving promotional announcement. Let the Record Show can be listened to on Saturdays between 4 and 5 and on Sunday mornings between 6 and 7. So if you miss us on Saturday, you can hear us on Sunday. If you don't want to get up on Sunday, you can listen to us on Saturday. And you can always listen to the rebroadcast on WABC if you miss either of those times. This is a record-breaking show. Our audiences are growing on a daily basis. That's thanks to Jesse and to Eric and a little bit of help from the anchor. That's me.
To our great anchor. To our outstanding anchor.
Anchors away. And gentlemen, thanks again. We look forward to being together again next week on Let the Record Show. And as always, God bless you, God bless your families, and of course, God bless America. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Let the Record Show with Judge Weinberg, Chairman Jesse Garcia, and Eric Lavine. You can hear Let the Record Show Sunday mornings at 6. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social, on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode, so you never have to wonder,
what the heck is going on here?
Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.